Why is Japanese so goddamn hard? Is something that you've probably thought to yourself if you're a native English speaker at least once. And yeah, I wouldn't consider it an easy language either, but it's not impossible to learn. I mean, after all, there is native speakers on it, so how hard can it really be? So today I'll just share my perspective as a fellow learner. Before we start, a little disclaimer though. I am by no means fluent in any languages I speak, I think, especially English or Japanese. And I'm merely just sharing my perspective on things. So yeah, my opinion is not gonna be an objective truth. Keep that in mind. And without any further ado, let's go. So if you're anything like me, for many people, Japanese is actually the first foreign language that we try to learn as a hobby. So that means the first language that we just learn by ourselves because we're interested in it instead of, learning it at school or growing up with it. So in most cases, we're actually not that familiar with how we learn ourselves. Because, school kind of forces you to learn, but not to think about how you learn. And yeah, I think at base level, this can become an actually big problem and a reason a lot of people give up. Because, language learning is not just about the stuff that is in a language, but also about yourself, and finding your own way and style of learning. A lot of people actually think they lack discipline to learn a language, while I think that's not actually true. They just don't know how they study the best, and they just try out the most boring method that'll make them give up. So to prevent this from happening in the first place, I'd recommend, especially when you're starting out, to just, try out everything you can and see what sticks and what doesn't. Remember, there is no shame in a method not working. That just means it's just not for you. You try learning flashcards over and over again, and it just doesn't work. It's not your fault. That's just, the way you learn. So you gotta switch it up. Like, for example, for me personally, in the beginning, I've always been told to, consume Japanese content, and I tried again and tried again and tried again to force myself many, many times until I realized maybe this just isn't for me. I am more of a person that likes interactive media, like games or, just talking to people. But that's just the way I learn. There's probably also people out there who are the exact opposite. You just gotta know what kind of category you fit into. Also, a lot of people treat talking the language, especially in the Japanese learning community, like it's the end of the world. Like, I will immerse with anime and not say one Japanese word until I'm fluent, and then I can perfectly speak. And personally, I don't think that's a good way to learn. Of course you shouldn't start talking if you know nothing. You should have a little bit of a foundation. But talking is not as bad as people make it out to be. A lot of people demonize talking, you shouldn't talk at all. Doesn't do anything for your Japanese. And while that is true to some extent, in my opinion, but I would say that outputting and putting yourself out there and talking actually increases your self-confidence a lot, and might help you find a situation in which you can use words that you can really use. You can also ask people for their input when you're talking to them. It's also a very good way to improve. So yeah, even if you don't have a foundation and you want to speak Japanese, just go for it. So yeah, to summarize, try to find something that suits your needs and try to not listen too much to other people. And take everything that everyone says with a grain of salt, including me, by the way. Another problem that I hear a lot of is the fact that a lot of people seem to have issues with, committing to learning a language. And yeah, a lot of people do give up on Japanese because they just don't think it's fun. A lot of people find themselves, studying every day like it's a chore they gotta do. I've actually had this happen to my friends before, where they just grind flashcards every day without even applying them. I mean, if you're just interested in the linguistic aspects and Japanese words, then it's totally fine. Just go for it. But if you're trying to, reach a conversational level, I don't think it's the best idea to just study and study and study. And if you're not as motivated as you were in the beginning, this might be the reason. Language learning takes a very long time. So, make sure to make it fun for yourself. If it's not fun, you'll just give up. And yeah, this kind of problem actually ties into the first problem a lot. You're gonna know what's fun and how you learn. So one example could be that, you skip out on flashcards for one day and go read something instead if you like reading. Or, set your favorite game to Japanese instead. It might not be as effective as flashcards, but, that's not the point. The point is not giving up, So don't be too harsh on yourself. And, if it's fun, your motivation might just go up. But before we continue, I'm proud to announce that this video is sponsored by me. I am pretty sure there's more than a few people that are actually watching at this very moment that click on my videos because of my cute avatars. And I can't really blame them for that. On the contrary, I'm here to encourage that. Because if you would like to see more of my avatars, channel updates, and other VR chat related contents, you can follow me on Twitter or X. And yeah, I put the link to that in the description down below. So if that interests you, feel free to check it out. So now let's talk about some specific aspects that are exclusive to the Japanese language, starting with kanji. Kanji are complex characters that describe a certain idea or concept, and a lot of Japanese words are made up of one or more kanji. A lot of people fall into the trap of learning kanji on their own, and then feel like they're not really progressing a lot, since kanji readings are very, very contextual. For example, this little guy can be read in 27 ways, so there's no way that you can brute force all of those readings into your head with, single flashcards. So what do, I hear you asking? Instead of learning kanji by themselves, just learn Japanese vocabulary words with kanji. It might sound scary, but in the long run, that's more productive than learning kanji by themselves. So for example, you're just, studying your Anki, and then this guy just pops up. Do you notice anything? Yes. The first kanji is the kanji that I've just introduced you to, the one with 27 readings. And then you learn this word, namazakana, and this word, ikiru, and this word, airu. And before you know it, you'll already know 4 of 27 readings. You didn't even study the individual readings as, they were just in your normal vocab words. The same applies to other words with lots of meanings. You might not like it, but that is the exact reason why knowing the building blocks, aka kanji, of a word doesn't mean that you already know that word. It's as if instead of learning the one word breakfast, you're learning the individual parts, break and fast, and then putting it together. There's no way in hell you can just, put that together unless you're like a detective or something. And yeah, as you learn more and more words, your brain is gonna automatically pick up on some patterns. For example, in the beginning, I learned about the verb ungoku, which means to move. I was absolutely flabbergasted when I looked at dobutsu, which came up later in my flashcards deck. And I was just thinking to myself, haven't I seen this guy before? And yeah, I sure have. Turns out the word dobutsu, which means animal or literally moving thing, uses the same kanji. So I've subconsciously just picked up a pattern, and I now know do and ungo for the readings for this kanji. And your brain will actually just adjust to these patterns if you, keep learning your regular vocab. And if you didn't have this moment yet, don't worry, because it does take some time and, some kind of foundation for this to kind of click in your brain. And when it clicks, it's also different from person to person. But once it does click, it's the best thing in the world. Another aspect of Japanese that is tricky and that I don't hear a lot about are homophones, or same-sounding words. So these guys, and these guys, these guys, these guys, and whatever the hell they're trying to accomplish. Gladly though, because we as humans have context, you can guess the meanings of words. For example, if I'm talking to someone about learning languages and I say "zishin nai yo," that doesn't mean, oh god, I don't have earthquakes. That just means, oh, I don't have confidence, because jishin and zishin are pronounced in the same way. Another genre of words that I found really confusing when I was starting out are words where the dictionaries are trying to force all of the possible English meanings upon the Japanese ones. Which is, fair enough. They're a dictionary, so they must have all of the meanings. But it can get really, 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 really confusing sometimes if you don't have the context. For example, shibui means astringent, bitter, puckery, rough, harsh, hard, austere, elegant, refined, quiet, sober, somber, subdued, tasteful, and understated. What do you mean by that? Rough and elegant? That doesn't make any sense. Another one you've probably seen. And no, I'm not amazed by how great and simple this kanji is. On the opposite, it means terrible, dreadful, amazing, great, wonderful, and terrific. If you're coming from a complete English perspective, this is just chaos. There's so many conflicting words that might confuse the beginner learner. But even though those are kind of hard to wrap your head around, most of them are adjective or more slangy words, thank God. And you can usually just learn them by talking to people or, like reading or watching stuff. So yeah, try to learn them embedded in a context instead of in a vacuum. And if you're an intermediate learner, try to use a monolingual dictionary. And to finish it all off, Japanese also has onomatopoeia. I need my English-speaking viewers to help me out here, because what the hell is da supposed to mean to a new learner? Like, what is even that sound? We don't have anything like it in English, and it might be hard in the beginning. There's also other ones like funya funya or muki muki. But yeah, there are as many as like 4,500 onomatopoeia in the language, and they're actually used more than you might think, especially on like, you know, social media posts and, you know, everyday casual speech. It's very common. So yeah, you just gotta kind of learn these by heart. I don't think there's a way around onomatopoeia. Just learn them as part of your vocab, try to use them, and move on. I could also be covering grammar points, but that's way beyond the scope of this video. But if you're curious about a certain type of grammar in Japanese, do let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your continued support. Don't forget to subscribe, and have a good day. Mata ne ra!